Oi, Jared,
What?
can you explain to us Tyre Bag Out, please?
No?
Please?
Fine. Ugh. It's a long way down though. Whoop. God. So, tyre bag out. So, you want to have your tyres bagged out or deflated when you're on the trail or on the sand or doing something that's not on the blacktop. And we bag them out because it means that the tyres can form over the surface better. And there's different levels of bag out or different levels of deflation that you want for all of these different surfaces. So what I might do is I've actually got my trusty tyre deflator here. And I'm going to start off. I normally have these tyres at 34 psi in the back because it's a ute and there's nothing really in the back of it. If you're in a heavier car, then you might want to stutter about it. You might want to run more. We'll probably do a video on inflations, and so when we do that, we'll stick a card up here. But today, let's deflate the tyre by maybe 5 psi every time, and we'll see what it looks like. So we'll do a specific video on a deflator. So I'll just cruise through that. You might even want to fast forward this bit if you want. But, so yep, we're at 34 psi at the moment. Whoop. You actually want to make sure you remove the valve stem. Come on. There we go. So I've just taken that down to 25 psi. That's kind of middle of the road. I wouldn't normally run this pressure for anything, but we can show you on the other camera here later on whether there's actually any difference. You'll see there's probably not a huge amount of difference. Next we'll go down to 20 psi. So now we're at 20 psi. If we're on a dirt track, bit rough, you can sometimes, or I sometimes take it down to 20 psi because it just means you've got a bit better passenger comfort. Keep in mind here that this is for 2-ply sidewall tyres. 3-ply sidewall tyres you might want to go down a bit more, but it's kind of comes down to the tyre as well. So this is 20 psi, good for sort of everyday off-road driving that's not too gnarly. You don't need too much conformity, more passenger comfort. Let's go down to 15 psi. That's 15 psi. And so this is actually a bit lower than what I would normally run. I actually tend to run about 17 on some trails, and then 15-ish on sand these days, depending on how fine the sand is. If you're on hard pack, then you can run a bit more. But if you're on really loose pack, you can actually go down to sort of, really loose sand, you can actually go down sort of 10 or 11 psi is getting low. So let's head down to 10 psi. So this is 10 psi, and you can see at this pressure that the tyre is really starting to bag out. So you're getting more of the tread face actually covering the ground. So yeah, you can sort of see it when you square on like that. And it's going to be a lot more squishy inside the car, but it means as you're driving over these obstacles, and keep in mind this is too low, so if you want to make sure 15 through 20 is a good range for when you're starting out. But this is good for demonstration because it means you can actually see how much the tyre can conform over things. Like I'm just pushing the car here and you can sort of see how much it's rolling around, which you wouldn't normally be able to do if it actually had full pressure in it. I wouldn't go less than 10 psi unless in emergency situations. That might be if you're stuck on the beach and you've got the tide coming in or whatever. But let's go down to 5 psi so you can see just the difference between 10 psi and 5 psi. So that's about 5 psi. It's actually lower than what my thing's going to read here. It's for some reason it's reading zeros, but it's still got some pressure in it. So that's pretty low. I wouldn't go low as that, apart from in emergency situations. But that's what 5 psi looks like. Let's go down to 0. Flat, no air in it. So I'll just stop it there before the actual tyre is sitting on the ground. But you can see how deflated that is. That's flat. You would only really run this in a proper emergency because it means you're going to get a lot of traction, but also you're more likely to have the wheel slip inside the tyre, which you don't want, and also more likely to do damage for the tyre. So that's as low as you can go. Again, a good range is between 15 and 20 psi, and never forget to re-inflate as you're getting back onto the road, because if you get back onto the road and the sidewall is still flexing, so it flexes every single time you're going around, that means the sidewall is going to heat up, and it means you're actually going to deteriorate your tyres a lot faster. So re-inflate your tyres after you get back on the road. And that's Tyre Bag Out, James. I'm glad you asked.